welcome back to the Adventure Fibre Works podcast. My name's Sydney, your host, and if you're new here, welcome. This is where we talk about all things fiber and craft and related subject matter. And if you're returning, well, welcome back. Nice to have you here. So, originally, I would have planned this to be like a regular knitting podcast, but some things happened that were outside of my control, to a point, I guess. But I'm going to change it up a little bit. For some context, I've developed tendinitis, or tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, in my right arm. Pretty sure because of knitting, unfortunately. So stretch your wrists, people. And I can't knit. I managed to push through the test knit that I'll show you that I was working on, the Farnham sweater, but I can't knit anymore. So it's been a tough few weeks. I've mostly been frustrated, but I'm trying to be kind and use it as a way to try out some other things. Also knowing that I can't grip very well right now. It kind of sucks. Having an injury that is probably caused by like your favorite thing and really impacts your day-to-day life. So for all those out there who are suffering from injuries or ongoing health problems, like, I feel you. It freaking sucks. And like, I don't feel like I have it that bad. You just try and do the best you can, right? So I don't want to focus too much on that, but this is going to be a bit different. I do have a few whips in progress, but I don't want to talk about them because I've had to stall, which is kind of, for me, it's just kind of heartbreaking. So first off, as I did finish, despite the pain really started to set in towards the end of trying to finish this, but I managed to push through, and then now there's too much pain to knit. But I did manage to finish my Farnham sweater, and it is so gorgeous. I will put some B-roll in here of me wearing it. This is just I'm so happy. I'm so happy that if I'm going to stall, that on my knitting and having to take a break, that I'm able to I was able to finish on something that was like I love. I've worn it lots. And yeah, so this is the Farnham test knit that I did for Sophie of the Knit Pro Girl. It's out right now. I'll post a link below. Go buy it. So worth it. So amazing. I made this out of knitting for Olive Merino and soft silk mohair. The soft silk mohair for the pink stripes was Cloud, which is very similar to the putty that I used for the white. And it's held with, Dusty Rose in the merino. And then the white stripes are both putty. And it's this beautiful, cool toned, slightly marled, light pink sweater. And it's just, I'm so happy with it. I'm definitely like a new staple in my wardrobe. Before the knitting got stopped, I was like, oh, this would be so nice in like a DK weight, like cotton merino, like a mix of that. I think that would be so pretty in like a light blue and white for spring, summer. It's a little cooler here in the summers, so we're not too worried about being a hot mess in Alberta, I find. So you can, it would be so nice. So I highly recommend, if you've been seeing this all over Instagram, do it. It's so worth it. It was a fun knit. It's on 4mm needles, and it got a little dry going down the body just because it is quite wide. I think it has like a 40 centimeter of excess around the bust, so it's meant to be quite wide, and I also lengthened it by a few inches because I think it's designed to fit a little cropped. I wanted it at my hip bones, so that it's easier to tuck in with jeans, and then it also lengthened a bit after blocking by probably like 1.5 inches. So I'm really happy with the length that you'll see. So got a little dry doing like around the body, but the stripes at least keep it a little more interesting. And I just love how the whole thing fits. Like I'm really pleased as punched with how this sweater turned out. The shoulders, I messed up a little bit. I'm not too concerned because overall it looks okay. But otherwise my pickups were really good. I think after I got over the bit of the stress that is, you'll see I don't know what happened here. I think I started knitting with like the wrong end or something for the last few things. So I tried to put some white in afterwards to try and save it. But anyway, all my other pickups were really neat. Which is big for me. I was really proud of myself to like actually take my time and do pickups properly, because sometimes they can be a bit messy. I find they're the part, I don't mind tucking in ends. There was a lot of ends in this sweater, but I hate picking up stitches. So I was really happy. If you'll notice on the back, it's almost lineless. Like you can't really see it, other than like there's a bend there, which is fine because it's the neckline. But I was like, oh, that looks really good. I was really happy with myself. So yeah, if you were wondering, go get this pattern. I don't think you'll regret it. Her sizing, if you know Sophie, is super inclusive. It's like really important to her. I think I sized down. I have like a 34-inch bust, and I sized, it's kind of like it was on a cusp. I could either size down or up, and I opted to go down because I didn't want it super huge. So it is, because it is so wide around the bust, that just to keep that in mind. I think she also added afterwards some steps on how to taper in the bottom a little bit, and I think if I were to make this again in more of like a summer yarn, I would think I'd put the tapering in. I like a super boxy, that's cool with me, but the photos that Sophie posted with the tapered in waist, it looks even just a little bit more better. So I think I would do that on my next. That would be the only thing I'd change, is just probably adding those tapers in. But otherwise, yeah, I love it. I'm really happy. Go knit this sweater up. I don't think you'll regret it. It looked fabulous on everyone. There were so many like different color combinations. It was fun. I really liked test knitting for Sophie. She's just really lovely. And so much time. Like I really didn't feel stressed at all. I think it started back in December, which I didn't knit at all on this in December because I was doing Christmas gifts. So I did it in, I think, like 6 or 7 weeks, which was more of like a regular time that I do a test knit in, but it was just like no stress. And I think you only had to have like one arm and the yoke done. So it's just super nice to be in like a low key test knit like that. So yeah, if you ever get the chance to test for her, I highly recommend it. It was a really lovely experience. So yeah, that was that. Now, works in progress. As I said, I'm not going to touch on, I started the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta. I haven't gotten very far. It was getting to a point where I can't hold knitting needles in my hands right now. So I can't hold a lot of things in my hands right now, but I can like kind of work on other things usually for a little bit. So I'll show you what I've been working on to try and take my mind off the fact that I can't knit. So I'm trying to frame it in my head as it's an opportunity to work on your dozens of other projects that you have. So one that I spoke of last time was my puff quilt. And so I've been slowly working on that. I got all the little envelopes done, and then I went to my friend's house and we laid out the quilt because she has a lot more space than me. And so I put all the rows together, and so now I still have rows that I need to sew up all in, because what you do is you sew all the squares into the rows. And then, so this is what I have so far. It's like a good chunk of the quilt. So then what I'll do is I'll sew the unpuffed strip that's next along here, puff it, sew it closed, because you have to put the little pleats in still, and then you add the next row on. So you just kind of puff as you go. Which maybe isn't like the best thing to say, puff as you go. But it's been fun, and it's so nice just sitting with this super cozy like pillow blanket basically. I can't wait for this to be done. I didn't work on it this weekend. It is a bit of a wrestle, I will say, because you're pushing so much fabric, and this quilt's getting heavy quick. If anyone here has ever quilted, you know that it's a bit of an arm workout to like push a huge amount of fabric through your sewing machine, especially because you're like all kind of support when I'm when I'm guiding it through the sewing machine, it's like this over my neck. And then I'll have like the strip I'm trying to put on like over this side of my neck, and I'm like, I could probably relax, but you have to like pull the fabric down a little bit. So it's a bit of a wrestle. So I have to go easy because it does cause pain. But I've just been, I used to do quilts kind of like all in one go. And so this quilt, I'm not doing that. I'm just kind of like, oh, I got 20 minutes here. I'll go sew some rows together. Oh, well, let's add another row to my growing like pillow blanket thing. And just taking my time. I batch doing the little envelopes. This is what it looks like on the back. I like batch do the little envelopes just whenever I had a little bit of time where I felt like sewing. So it's been kind of a nice experience to slow it down a little bit instead of like motor through all at once. The cats have been sleeping in this thing. It's super cozy. If you're into quilting or sewing, I'd highly recommend. I'll post the pattern. It's a free one by Lo and Behold Stitchery. And I didn't buy any of this fabric. It was all, well, I bought it at one point, I guess. But it was all because you just need 4.5-inch scraps or 4.5-inch squares of the showy fabric. You can really do it with fabric you probably have. And it will be, I'll post a photo of the layout that I'm doing so you can get an idea, but it's going to go from one corner to the other. This is the dark green corner, obviously, into beige. And then as it works down, it'll go from pinks into orange into brown. And the orange and the green are on opposite corners. So I think it's going to look super good. I'm super excited. It's very fall vibes, and it's still winter here. I think this will be super cozy. I'm really excited to continue to slowly work on this. I'm excited to have it done, but I'm also looking forward to just continuing my slower process of making this. And then, okay, so the other thing I've been working on is I dabble in other crafts like cross stitch. I've only done one cross stitch project before, but I bought this one last summer, I think. And it's a solar system. My partner is into astrophotography and space. And all things science. So I picked this up for him. He knows I have it. He helped me wind all the embroidery floss onto little holders. But I've been kind of picking away at it. I haven't gone very far. Just this little spot of the sun. It's an okay one for my hand. I can do it in short spurts. Today, not so much. But I've been picking away at that when I can. This might be a Christmas present, so at least if I have it started, it's not sitting around anymore. It's started, it's an action, and I can just work on it as I see fit. I was kind of intimidated at first, but I think it'll be okay. Cross stitch just takes a longer time, obviously. Cross stitch is great though if you want something else to do, because the startup costs are pretty nil. I think the most expensive thing is the Ada cloth, which is I don't know if you can probably see, but it's the fabric you do it on, and it's kind of like a little grid. And there's no learning curve. It's you put you just have to start doing little crosses on the grid that is your fabric. So if you need something small that's easily transportable, cross stitch is a great one because it has no learning curve. You pick it up in 5 minutes and you're like, cool, I got this. And it's really nice for that. It's a great entry point, or if you know someone who wants to do something and they don't want to invest a lot of money into stuff, probably for $30 you can get pattern, Ada cloth, needles, all your DMC floss you'd need, and you could make something. So, and it's easily transportable, which is really nice. So you're not making a space commitment either. So it's a great one if you know someone in your life who wants to start crafting and doesn't know where to start. It's like a great entryway drug. Yes. And then what else? Oh, okay. Well then, kind of related to knitting and fiber. It's fiber one. As I started learning how to spin. So I have had my Louette, I think it's an S17 wheel that I got used off Kijiji in, which is like a Craigslist if you're in Ontario or in Canada. When I was in Ottawa like a year and a half ago, I think it was like October 2021. And then my dad was driving out to Alberta to pick up a camper for my parents. So he drove it across the country for me because I couldn't take it on the plane, obviously. And it's just been sitting in the closet for like since then. I've tried playing around with much failure. I had for a couple days dabbled with a drop spindle I got. I think that was like back in October probably when I got the drop spindle. And basically just sat there, and I've been wanting to take lessons, like an in-person lesson, just to get me started, because I can watch all the videos that I want, but it doesn't always help. I had tried following a video on Crafty that came recommended, but she totally skipped the drafting part and just went right into, oh, and you just start spinning once your feet know what to do, and it went terribly. There's like a huge portion I missed. So I knew I just wanted to have it in person where I can ask questions, where I can really see someone doing something from all angles and they can explain it to me, because that's how I learn best, is when someone shows me. Videos are okay, but I do learn better like in person where I can ask questions. And so I've been wanting to take classes. There's a couple places that offer them throughout the city, and it just never worked with dates, especially last year because I was super busy doing a lot of yoga teacher training. So finally, some dates worked out for one of the local yarn shops. That's like a 40-minute drive. It's outside the city. They were having classes, and I finally got to sign up, and it worked with my schedule. It was really exciting. So I spent the last 2 Saturdays, it's Monday now when I'm filming this, so the past 2 Saturdays spinning and learning how to spin. So the first class we just spun some unspun pencil roving or unspun yarn, just to get an idea of the pull and like how to treadle your feet so you can go through the movements without having to draft. And then at the end of the class she went over drafting briefly. And then the next week I spent kind of figuring out drafting. I watched a couple videos. I started watching, if you aren't watching her, you should go, especially if you have like any remote interest in spinning. And she also covers knitting, is Stitches and Starlight. She's been well recommended through a bunch of other YouTubers and Instagram folks to watch. So I started watching her, and she's fabulous. I love her. She's so funny. And she does a lot of spinning. So I ended up, it was a video about her collection of spinning wheels and what she does, but it was you didn't see her face in the video, it was just her chatting while she was drafting and kind of talking about spinning on her wheels. And just being able to sit and watch her, like I just kind of sat and stared, was really helpful because I could see close up about a different way to draft. It's like, I think it's just a variation of a short forward, but which is what we kind of gone over. It was like right at the end of the class, so we didn't get a whole lot of time to practice. So just watching that, I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. So then I got to draft the 2 colors I picked, make the singles, and then this last class, we got to ply them together to actually make a 2-ply yarn. So let me grab this 1 second. So this is the yarn I made. I'm super proud of this. I definitely there's big things in here, big sections. Oh, there's like a real big section. And then there's really tiny sections where things are thinner. But it looks really pretty with the colors I chose. And I'm really proud. I made yarn. It's an art bat, we'll call it, because it's thick and thin, right? As I'm sure every beginner spinners is. And, you know, I will say this, I basically spun like 100 grams of cordell to get this. This is, I think this came out to be 63 yards. 62 yards? 62 yards that I have here. And it was a cordell, so it's kind of a medium staple length. If you know anything about spinning, that might mean something, but basically like a lock, or like the hairs are about this long. So it's a nice place to start because it's easier to draft because they're not too short, they're not too long, it's just a little more natural. So I did about less than 100 grams because I had a lot of pieces that fell off and I got angry at and we had to restart. And there was a lot of, I was under twisting my yarn to begin with because I don't think I was pedaling fast enough. And so it kind of kept breaking and falling apart, and I was like, it drove me crazy. I definitely learned of like, okay, so when we get mad, we're going to move the wheel where I can't see it and do something else. But even between like the first, I think I did the light pink first, and it's definitely messier than the dark pink. The dark pink I did second, and so the first half of the dark pink was still a little messy. Oh, I did the first half of the light pink, or most of the light pink. I got angry because it kept breaking because I was not spinning it tight enough. And then I went to the pink stuff. The first little bit was rough, and then I started to catch on that, I need to go faster to be able to twist in so it stops falling apart on me. And so by the kind of towards the second half and end of the dark pink spin, I was really starting to get it. There were still some lumps and bumps, as you'd expect. But it was, I noticed that it was getting a little finer and it was getting more consistent. And I was like, okay. And I started to add more twists because I realized that what was happening. And so then I went back and I did the little bit of the light pink that I still had left and did that and managed to like get it good. And then I plied it together. The plying was really easy. Loved plying. It was super simple. I definitely made a lot more of the dark pink yarn than the light pink. And I think that is just to do with the fact that the light pink I was able to get thinner because I was going faster and it was more consistent. Versus the light pinks, there's a lot more large areas that have a lot of wool. I'd like to see one here. So the dark pink ended up going farther. So yeah, this causes a bit of annoyance after a while, but I can do it in short bursts, and like you'd be surprised how much you can get through in short bursts of spinning. Like you can make quite a bit of yarn. So I'll do it for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And that seems to be okay. And I just try and break it up and give my hand a rest. I do have a brace on right now, so that kind of helps. And because it's a bit of a different movement than knitting, and I'm not putting the same pressure on holding things, it's a little easier for my hands to do right now. So welcome to the new spinning vlog, I guess. I think I'm going to be doing a lot. I have like a collection of fiber. Oh, that's the other thing I have to talk about, right? So that I've collected because I knew I was going to spin. And I just think fiber is so pretty. And it's funny because my fiber collection is a lot more bright and colorful and like different colors than my like yarn collection. So I think that's kind of funny. So I'll be interested to see how that transitions into like knitting things with my hand spun, because that, for me, that's the goal. I want to create things with the hand spun that I make, because I think that's kind of my point, is like I want to go a little bit deeper, like now I can make my own yarn to make my own clothes. So I don't think it's going to stop me from buying yarn. Like, let's put that, make sure, like I'm still going to buy yarn, but I'm going to keep this not knit up. This is going to be my look how far you've come piece. I have started already. I had in my collection, I just had like a bag of Cordell that I got eons ago from Custom Wool Mills here in Alberta with a bunch of yarn, just like a bag of their roving. So I'm already starting to spin that up. It's just a white cordell. I'll try and put some video in of me spinning it, but it's really easy, and already I can tell my twist is there. It's maybe almost over twisted. I think sometimes I'm overcompensating, so I'm trying to keep that in mind if I'm seeing a lot of pigtailing. And then I'm like, okay, whoa, we need to put twist in it, but not too much twist, but not like when I wasn't putting like any twist in it. So it's definitely still trying to figure that one out, but it's way more consistent. And this is like, you know, my third go at like another fiber. So it's been kind of quick. Like I'm really motivated to keep it going, to see where I can go. And this is basically yarn or fiber I bought to practice with. So I'll just have some white yarn. Hopefully I will just see what happens. Maybe like I'll play around with dyeing it, or I'll mix it with another color, just to see what happens. Yeah, so that's been that journey. And then this other thing is I bought myself a blending board before I finished spinning lessons, because I was like, oh, I want to blend all this collection of fiber I have. And I think maybe I'll do a different video, and I can show you like all my like fiber collection, because that might be fun, and kind of my ideas with that. So let me grab the blending board. Okay, so blending board is this thing, and you have a flick to brush it in. And if I do a fiber video, I'll actually do a demo, because it's really fun. I really like watching it. I like binged some videos on School of Sweet Georgia that were all how to blend fiber on a fiber board and a blending board, and like watched it like Netflix. Like I just sat and watched people, because it was just like basically just explaining how to do it, all the fibers you can put into it, and it's just so fun to watch them come up with these combinations. But what this allows you to do is take roving and top and different fibers you have, like maybe silk or like wool neps, and you get to layer them onto the blending board in fine layers, and you can really start to mix fiber and color to get really interesting things, really, just to see what happens. So I've only used this once. I didn't get to use it this weekend. We've been organizing, but this has been fun, and I don't think I'm good enough at spinning yet to start spinning what I'm making on the blending board, but I can show you what I'm working on. I have a lot of fiber to get through, so I figure while I practice spinning, I'll make some blends, and then I can play around and experiment. So this is the first thing I have made. I hope you can see that. And I have it so the camera's facing me, so I can't see what I'm filming. So we're going by gut here. But I had kind of a bunch of my small amounts of fiber that weren't really enough to make an amount of yarn that I could really do something with. And I was like, this could work, because I had pinks, I had light blues, and I had purples. And I was like, could I mix this on the blending board together to get something that would make sense color story wise? And I was like, I also had this art bat from Curious Fox Fibers that a friend got me for Christmas, that had a lot of like really bright pieces and flecks of color in it. And I was like, I don't know, this might be too much for me if it's, you know, spun right from the bat with all the different colors in it, but what if I could use it to get the different colors and different things? So this is what I made. So I did it in stripes, from pink to blue into purple, and then back into pinks, blue, and then purple. And you might notice that there's these green, bright green sections. There's like a bit of bright pink and purple. I have yellow silk in there as well. But it's just like these bright kind of streaks of color that between some yellow silk and the art bat really puts these like bright flecks of color. And I think this is so pretty. I'm so happy with how it turned out. So I think altogether, all the fiber I have, there's like 500 grams. So I can make like a freaking sweater with that, probably. So, but I think I want to make some more of these kind of pre-drafted roll legs. and kind of experiment. I would like to make a big shawl, I think, with the colors I have. I think it would be really pretty for spring. Next spring, maybe, between my injury and my spinning. This is a lot of merino and silk, which is harder to spin. So this will probably be my experiment. It was my color experiment. I'm really happy with how the color turned out. It's probably going to become a spinning experiment at some point, because I don't know if, like, do I want to apply it kind of back on itself, or do I want the colors to get more of like kind of like this, like, you know, maybe some barber pulling where you can see the different colors, or do I want to apply it with some white maybe so you get more color, but then yeah, I think there's a lot to play around. So this is my experiment. It was my experiment on the blending board. It'll be my experiment with spinning, just to see what happens. But I think I'm onto something with these colors. This is not something the pink I'd wear. The pink I'd wear and the blue I'd wear. But like kind of these pastel-y, springy colors together isn't probably something I'd wear normally. But I feel like a shawl is a good place for that, right? Because you can, like, who cares what color it is? It's a shawl. You can add it in. You can take it off. Like, you can just wrap yourself up and be cozy. Shawls are just more flexible. But yeah, that's something I've been working on. And if there's interest, I can do a demo of like how I made this basically, and the fibers I have. I think that would be really fun. So you might see that next week. Try and get some more videos out. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. Oh, there's some guck in here. Yeah, so that's kind of been, it's just been a lot of repivoting from knitting into, like, you can do a lot else. What else is there? I think spinning came at a good time. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, and that's kind of my works and projects. I got the blending board. I bought the blending board. I made some fiber. But the other thing that's like kind of going on in my life is my partner bought himself not one, but two 3D printers. We spent the entire weekend reorganizing, kind of like the last 2 weekends, trying to reorganize our tiny, very full apartment to fit things in, which involved dumping some stuff at his dad's house because we are like bursting at the seams in this apartment. The goal is to get a house this year, so it has more room. We are hobby enthusiast people, but we aren't like chill hobbyist enthusiast people. We have no chill. And so we both have hobbies that are expensive and take up a lot of room. I have my own room, which is like a blessing. I'm so thankful that, and mostly that is because I work from home, so I wanted my own space. He doesn't have a room to put his stuff, so it's we had to like kind of pull everything out of the utility room and make room for the 3D printers to go in there. So it's been kind of fun. He's made me made us, I guess, like D&D characters. I'll grab them. So he made me a dragon because I wanted a little dragon for my desk. And as well as, if you can't see right here, I'll put some better view. But this is my D&D character for our current game right now. And he's going to make us all players, and we're all going to have a paint night and stuff as a group. So that's with a resin 3D printer, which is really good at things like that. You get a lot of detail, and so they're great for models and minis and kind of those little nerdy things you like. Now, the more of a 3D printer, which you might be thinking of, which it kind of has like the plastic filaments, he now has one of those, and those are stronger but less detail oriented. So really good for parts and things you're going to use on a daily basis. And so, of course, as soon as he said he was getting a 3D printer, I was like, what can we 3D print for the fiber arts? A lot of stuff. Oh my God, it's so cool. So I'll show you, it's not fiber related. I should have just grabbed it. Just a second. So he made this for me. So this is like a great example of like, you know, high detail mini versus something you can actually use. And this is a plant pot complete with holes. And he 3D printed this for me on the weekend, just as an experiment. He goes, how big do you need a plant pot? And so I gave him some rough sizes. This is like 5 inches, I think, 5 or 6 inches. And it's turned out really pretty. I'm really happy. Like, it's really cool. So this 3D printer can print things that are really usable because it's just stronger. So I have a plant pot. But it's amazing the community that's in 3D printing. Like, you know, the Fibre Arts has an amazing online community, I find, and so does 3D printing, and there's like a lot of overlap. So if you've heard of like the electric eel wheels, which are those small, really affordable 3D printed e-spinners, you can get a lot of the Maurice, the man who makes them, you can make a lot of the parts, and he has posted the files that you need for it online for free. So he doesn't have full instructions of how to remake the thing. Completely understandable. But my boyfriend wants to experiment, just see if he can make one. I had mentioned to him, like, I think last year, that you can make an e-spinner with 3D printed parts, and then you obviously have to get a motor and stuff. So he's really interested to try and make one. There's a lot of other people who have just made them outside of electric eel wheels, so it's very possible. So he is an engineer at heart, so he just wants to figure it out. He wants to see if he can do it. So I'm along for that ride. I want to make some especially storage bobbins for my spinning wheel, because I only have 3 bobbins, and because my wheel is bobbin led, you have to have the specific bobbins on it to be able to actually make the yarn. So I would like him to make me some storage ones so that I can, like, you know, build up a collection of singles before I apply them together to make the yarn. So that'll be, and they're really easy, and there's lots of files. I'm going to post some links below. If you know someone in your life or your partner wants to get into 3D printing or has a 3D printer, or there's like some communities have access to 3D printers and you want to print some of your own stuff, it's way cheaper than buying it. The files are all free, and it's just like a cool way to experiment in something new where you have this like cool crossover between the hobbies. So my boyfriend's really excited to make me some things because they'll be very usable, and he's like, wow, there's like kind of a hole of fiber tools that are really expensive to get, like made of wood and stuff, but seem very doable on a 3D printer. So he's going to play around with that. So I've asked him to make me an e-spinner down the road, just for fun. I think it would be a good project for him, and he seems to agree. Some storage bobbins, and then I also found a whole, a man has made a free circular sock knitting machine, which is one of those hand crank machines, and it knits itself the sock. I watched a lot of videos on them. They're very complex to use. Like, high fives, like, bow down to people who know how to use knitting machines in all forms, because they're like kind of insane. You have to do a lot of experimentation to be able to find like how it works. But anyway, I've kind of looked at CSMs or circular sock machines before, and like to get like a metal one, they're like $2,000 Canadian, and I'm like, yeah, nah, not on that. And there is a company, I think it's Dean and Bean, it makes a 3D printed circular sock machine. It's much more affordable, but even then it's still like $750 USD, which is some astronomical number in Canadian, probably like 900 or 1,000. And so it's still really expensive. So this man has made 2 versions. I'm looking at his more recent one because it has a ribber, so it lets you do ribbed socks. And it's a completely free thing. There's a huge community around this. I'll put the information there, around this free 3D printed circular sock machine. Apparently it works really well. You obviously need to get a lot of the other parts that you can't 3D print, like the needles and screws and stuff. But still, it would probably only put us back like, because if you think about it, I think he said it takes about 1 kilogram of 3D printed plastic, which probably costs between $20 and $30. And then you just need to get the rest of the parts. So that'll be a journey. My boyfriend Dory is really keen to make that thing too. He goes, I can totally do this. He's really obsessed with his 3D printer now. So yeah, it's going to be cool. And we're going to see if we can make that work. And then that'll be like another rabbit hole, which I don't know how long I'm going to have this tendinitis for, but it'll be like a good way to, if you do have an injury, it might be like a way to, an interesting way to get around it and still make socks, because I would like to make socks, but I don't like how much time they take when I could be making a sweater. So, but I would love handmade socks. So for me, I'm like, that's cool. Like, you can kind of get, socks a little faster. I mean, it still takes a few hours, and it's fairly complex still. To the people who say that knitting machines are cheating, I am in the mindset they are not. It's just different. You're not maybe hand knitting something, but you're still hand making something because believe me, I've watched the videos. It's very complex. There's a lot of skill and hours of research and experimentation that go in it. And so for those of you who are using knitting machines, like, you have all my support and love and respect. It's an extension of a similar hobby that's just different, right? So anyway, I would love to be able to crank out socks in like an afternoon and have a pair. That would just be great. I really like that. It would make gift giving way easier. So, that's another thing that we want to play around with. So I'm going to take you on this 3D printing adventure. I'll work it into my regular ones. I think it's not something a lot of people have talked about. And now that we have this 3D printer, like, I'm interested to see where this goes. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll post a bunch of links of kind of like the stuff I've found so far. I think on one of the free file websites where people post their designs, I can share the collection. So I've just started a collection of like things I want to make for 3D printing. So hopefully I can just share that down there, and I'll update it as I go so you can kind of follow along. But yeah, that was it's a bit of a different, I'm trying to keep just interested in different things that isn't knitting, and I'm kind of angry about it, but trying to fill my time, as you see, with different things and use an opportunity to dabble in other stuff. But yeah, I am going to physio. I've talked to a doctor about getting cortisol shots. I don't know if that's the road I do want to take. So we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you hang around for some fiber and 3D printing adventures coming up. And yeah, have a wonderful day. If you like what you've seen here, click that like button, hit the subscribe, and have a wonderful crafty day. Bye.